Hi, Frank. Thank you for joining me. I'm really glad that you're here with me and Destino. I wanted to take a second to chat with you about what you do here at Warner Brothers. Are you able to start with your name and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Frank Pace. I'm currently a production executive at Warner Brothers, following a 40-year career as a television producer.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for joining me again. And first of all, I actually wanted to know a little bit more about how you got started and how you decided that you wanted to join entertainment.
Well, I didn't really decide to join entertainment. Decided to join me.
Yeah.
I just walked through any doors that opened when I was younger. I
Yeah.
was started out to be a publicist in a now defunct football league called the World Football League. I segued into advertising for 7 years, and I got into television production through my friend Steve Papazian, who hired me to produce, who had seen some of the work I had done in advertising and hired me to work on Head of the Class, the original Head of the Class.
Oh, okay, okay. And what would you say is one of the things that, or one of the projects that you are most proud of that you've helped
You know,
out?
I've worked on so many projects. I worked on Head of the Class, Murphy Brown, twice. I worked on Murphy Brown, Suddenly Susan, George Lopez, Shake It Up, Girl Meets World, Night Court. Daddy Dearest.
Yeah.
I love them all. I don't have a favorite. They're like all my children.
I agree with that. I always enjoy my time just to be on a project. It's just always so satisfying and fun to do.
Why don't you tell me what Destino is?
Destino, this is the intention here is to shine a light and give some inspiration and also to just give confidence to young people that want to join the entertainment industry, but because of resources that they might not have, we're bringing resources to them and bringing them these conversations so that they can feel like they're in the room with you and I, for example.
Well, I'll give them one piece of advice. Have an alternate plan
Yeah,
because this
absolutely.
business is this business is really hard. And if you put all your eggs into this basket, you're going to be disappointed. Now, you very well likely are to be disappointed. So if you got an alternate revenue stream and an alternate way to make money, pursue that simultaneously. Don't ever give up on your dream of getting into show business, but
Yeah.
pursue the other avenue of revenue just as fervently as you pursue an entertainment.
What would you say is like an experience that would benefit them to have like an edge on joining the industry?
Well, it depends. I talk to people who say, well, I either want to be an actor or a writer or a director or a utility or a grip. And I say, well, pick one.
Yeah,
Pick one and
exactly.
concentrate on it. If
Yeah.
you want to be a director or a writer, those are two separate things. There are people that have been working, if they're 25 years old, people have been working, 15 years to become a director. They're
Yeah.
studying it. And the same way of writers. If you want to be a writer, write. Um, and you can always branch off after you've made it as a writer or a director or an actor, but you can't do all of those things at once. And
I,
when you come up against somebody who's been wanting to be a director for 15 years and you wanted to be a director for a year, you're going to lose out to that person because you're not going to have the experience or the wherewithal to get a job in the industry.
yeah, exactly. The intention also is to make sure that, yes, it's great to have this goal of working on a network show, but also understanding of the journey of being able to work on like non-union or your own projects, just stuff to help you level up to when you get that opportunity.
Correct. Correct. And they you guys today have such a big advantage over when I was coming up because you can do everything on your iPhone. You
Yeah.
can you can produce and you shoot and you can edit all on your iPhone. So you can make product or put it on YouTube for people to see it. And then
Yeah.
you never know who'll see it because a lot of people have got their starts becoming influencers.
Well, for those that eventually would love to be hired by you or somebody like you, what is one of the things that really stand out for you as far as like a director, for example?
Well, I can't really speak for a director, um, because I know what it takes to be a good director. But
Yeah.
in television, uh, it's a writer's medium, not a director's medium. Oftentimes the director is just coming aboard to do the writer's vision, to
Yeah.
capture the writer's vision. So I can't tell you to be a director. You've got to be in the system for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and you have to be directing for a lot of years before they're even going to give you a chance. So
Right.
I know several directors who have been working at their craft of becoming a director for 10 or 15 years. And they're successful, but they're not mainstream directors. And they're better than most of the mainstream directors.
How do you suggest these creatives handle notes or any type of changes when it comes to their work?
Yeah, they should say yes to any note that they get, and then do the ones that they agree with.
Right.
I,
And
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? They should say yes to 100% of the notes and do the 50% that they agree with.
right. Yes, because the intention is always, of course, to be in collaboration, but also to understand that the intention is to make the best product. So it's just figuring out how to find that middle ground.
Correct. Correct.
Uh, what would you say is a position that they could look for to get some experience?
You got to get your foot in the door. I was walking down Olive Street one day when I was just starting in the business, and
Yeah,
I was with Bill Schilling, who played the principal in the original head of the class. And we were on the east side of the street. And he said, you know what the longest walk you'll ever make in your career? And I said, what's that? He said, from this side, from the east side of the street to the west side of the street. And the west side of the street had the gate where you get into the studio.
yeah.
So get in any way you can. And probably if you're a young person, you're going to have to be a PA.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like it goes hand in hand with what you said earlier about just making that choice. And by being a PA, that's your opportunity to really get understanding of what's needed on a show.
And when you're a PA or when you meet people,
Mhm.
uh, the one thing that bothers me the most
Yeah,
is that people have prescribed hours that they say they're working. Well, from 9 to 6, let's say you're working 9 to 6, you can't reach anybody before 9 or after 6. That's bullshit. You got to be available all the time. You got to be available all the time.
yes,
And you can't just you rely on texts too much. You
right.
rely on emails too much. Uh, you should be following up with personal notes or personal letters or answering phone calls. Again, the business of ghosting people is all too prevalent now. If you if
Yes.
you if you want to say no to the person's face because instead of hiding behind a ghost text.
Oh, I agree with that, especially for those that do want to give back or give mentorship, and it doesn't feel right when that person that asked for that opportunity just ends up not following through.
Correct. Correct. You're right.
How important do you think it is to have educational background as far as going to college for film?
I think people that are going to colleges
Sure.
for an education, unless it's really a well-funded place like USC or Chapman, it's different than going to a Florida State, for
Right.
example, or University of Miami, because I've worked with people that have come from University of Miami or Florida State or Oshkosh, but they're predominantly being taught by people who've never succeeded. So if you have never succeeded yourself, how can you teach somebody how to succeed? It's the same thing with a lot of these acting schools
Yeah.
too. You're taught by somebody who's teaching because they haven't really succeeded.
Right.
Try to do your best to fall under the umbrella of somebody who has succeeded so that you can learn how to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I could only speak for myself, but I decided to leave that behind to get my foot in the door first, and I was able to get an entry-level job here at Warner Brothers, but that just opened up my world and my opportunities to walk the hallways with the Chuck Lorres and all these other top creatives, and just to be able to be a fly on the wall to really listen and to see it being done in person. So it's definitely the a huge difference to do it in a classroom than in the studio.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
Well, just to stick with that topic, because I am familiar with a lot of people who want to break in as actors, but what do you suggest is a way for them to get recognized or have, yeah,
Act. Go wherever you have to do to act. Go to local theater, regional theater,
yeah.
student films. Act. Get better. Make your mistakes somewhere else. So when you get here, you already know what you're doing.
How important is it to keep those relationships and to continue networking?
You have to, this whole business is networking.
Yeah,
Yeah, every time you meet somebody, every time you know somebody, you should try to stay in touch with that person. I
yeah,
mean, I was fortunate. I worked with, Stephen Bochco and a lot of the best people in the business, and I
yeah.
always kept in touch with them. Diane English, shucks, I did a pilot for Murphy Brown 30 years ago, and then I didn't do the series because I had a previous obligation to head of the class, and head of the class was going to Russia that year, and head of the class had a 2-year pickup, so I just wanted to do head of the class. But 30 years later, when they were remaking Murphy Brown, I was one of the first person Diane English called
Yeah,
because she wanted me to do that series in New York. So
right.
that's why you never know what goes around comes around. Um,
Yes.
the actor Stephen Lang told me a story when Jim Cameron had auditioned him like 15 years ago, and he didn't hire him. And then when he was making Avatar, he called Stephen, who he remembered, and he cast him in Avatar
Oh man.
15 years later because they
Yeah.
had stayed in touch.
Right. And that's exactly it. That even if you feel like you're maybe bothering them or being too much, I mean, I feel like a lot of the times it's just to be patient and to be persistent. And even if you don't get an email right away, it's still your intention just to stay in contact with that person.
Yep, absolutely. I can't tell you how many people I've tried to give their starts to,
Yeah.
and when that project ended, they didn't realize that I was a champion for them, and they just went away, and I never heard from them again.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's part of what I'm trying to do here is just to have people understand of not being so quick to look for that gratitude or that reward and to understand that it's a slow process sometimes.
Yeah, if you're in it for immediate satisfaction and quick rewards, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, thank you, Frank. I really appreciate the conversation with you.
Yeah, and again, if anybody wants to read, I wrote a book, and a book called "If These Lips Could Talk,"
Yeah,
and it's available on Amazon. But again, it's a primer for how to get there's chapters and primers on how to get into business and
Beautiful.
things. So if anybody is interested in ordering it, they should go to Amazon and Google if these lips could talk or Frank Pace books.
All
So
right.
again, I think it'll be useful for you and the people who watch this podcast to read a lot of the things I go into things that we touched the surface on in the
Sure.
book in depth.
Are you able to share a little bit more about the book with us?
Well, it's about the people that I met along the way.
Right.
People like John Wayne, Zendaya, Sylvester Stallone,
Wow.
Donald Trump, Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
uh, uh, Candace Bergen, Brooke Shields. It's about how I got to work with them and build relationships with them. And it also talks about a lot of other things. My relationship with Jay Thomas, the late actor, my relationship with Rod Carew, the baseball player, my relationship with Reggie Jackson, and a lot of those things all fit together.
Yeah.
It's a fun read, but
Yeah.
it's an educational read as well.
Well, that's exactly it about material like that that gives you a slice of life, especially coming from you in a first person point of view, just to give kind of that experience that nobody else can give people.
Yeah, and it's not a book about me at all. It's about the people that I worked with and the people that I met and the people that I liked and the people that I
Yeah,
didn't like and some of the reasons why I didn't like them.
great. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna put the link to that to this video.
Okay, great. Because it's Amazon.com and then just put a link to if these lips could talk.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Hugo. Bye bye.
Bye.